You've been searching for the best way to generate passive income in your life and heard that real estate is a great way to do it. But you're tired of all the so-called gurus who are all talk and no substance. Get ready to celebrate because Kevin Bupp has spent 14 years successfully making it happen. This is the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Now, here's Kevin Bupp.
Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. Our guest for this week's show is cannabis facility design and construction expert, Andy Poticha. Now, on today's show, we're going to be discussing the booming business of cannabis. I mean, you literally can't go a day without a major headline, either touting one of the thousands of medicinal benefits that cannabis offers, or of the huge opportunity that exists from the business side of things. Well, with that, Andy has been specializing in the design and construction of cannabis facilities for the last 5 years, and today has been involved in the design and build of 20 different cannabis-specific projects. So I'm very excited to have a candid conversation with Andy about a variety of topics revolving around the new world of cannabis, and I'm absolutely confident that you guys are going to find a huge amount of value in our time together. And so with that, just a few items I want to run through real quick before we get onto the show with Andy. First and foremost, if this is the first time that you're tuning into the show, I want to thank you for joining us here. And if you're one of the many millions of listeners now that who make listening to the show part of their weekly ritual, then I just want to welcome you back and thank each and every one of you for the time that you dedicate to the show. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for loyal listeners like yourself. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for you taking the time and choosing our show over the, tens of thousands of others that are out there. And since it's really loyal listeners like yourself that make all this possible, I'd like to take a moment and just give a shout out to one very awesome listener who took the time to leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. This one is from, I believe, they didn't put a name here, but I believe I actually know who this individual is. So it's pretty cool. I think this is Steven, who I've known for about a year now. It says, I've been listening to Kevin's podcast for over 2 years and have listened to most of the episodes. I also listened to several other real estate investment podcasts. To date, Investing for Cash Flow is the most informative and interesting podcast I listen to. Even when the titles don't sound like something that is particularly up my alley, I always learn a few new and interesting things. Recently, I invested in Sunrise Capital Investors, and I flew from Washington to Tampa to meet Kevin and Brian, and they are the real deal. So I believe it's Steven. So thank you, Steven, for taking the time to leave that review. And that was not prompted, guys, at all. I just pulled that one up, and that was a random one. I think I know who that is. So where I'm going with this is if you love what we're doing here, if you love the information that we share and you feel like it adds value to your business, do me 2 favors. Number 1, take a minute and go subscribe to the show. That way you won't miss any future episodes. And number 2, leave an honest review and rating. I'm not going to tell you leave a 5-star. I say leave an honest review and rating because I really do want your positive and honest feedback as to what you like about the show, what you'd like to see more of. Okay, this is a way for us to communicate and you to give some feedback. If you'd like to see more of a certain type of guest or a topic, let me know. You can do that in the review. I read all those reviews, okay? And just a couple quick housekeeping items before we get onto the show with Andy. Number 1, I want to remind you about the free 30-minute phone consultation that I used to offer for many years, and I went on about a 1-year hiatus. So I'm bringing that back again. And this is a 30-minute call. I set aside 4 30-minute segments every Friday to where you and I can connect on the phone, no ulterior motives whatsoever. And you can ask me anything and everything your heart desires about real estate investing. And it doesn't matter if you're brand new and you're just looking for some general feedback or a sounding board, or hopefully for some sound advice, or if you're an experienced professional and you just want to talk shop. I used to do this free call, and I literally talked to hundreds of you over the first, 3.5 years that I was doing the calls. And ultimately, we're bringing these back again. I would love to be able to connect with you. What you need to do to schedule that 30-minute phone consultation is go to kevinbupp.com, scroll down. On the right-hand side, about 3/4 of the way, you'll see a button that says Schedule Call with Kevin. Just simply click that, pull time off my calendar. But very importantly, this is a very important part. You've got to put notes in there about what you'd like to chat about so that I can prepare for the call. If there's specific questions, make sure you put them in there. And that way we can spend our 30 minutes together in a very efficient manner. You'll be surprised at how fast 30 minutes goes. And so I want to make sure I give you as much value as possible. Lastly, guys, before we get on to the show with Andy, we're hiring over here at Sunrise Capital Investors. So if you're looking for an awesome team to join and down here in sunny Florida, especially for those folks that are in a cold environment right now, we're looking to add some rock stars to our team. You can learn about all the open positions that we have by going to careers.sunrisecapitalinvestors.com. Again, careers.sunrisecapitalinvestors.com. Now, with that, guys, I'd like to welcome our guest for today's show, Andy Poticha. Andy, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Kevin?
Oh, I'm doing great, and I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us here. And this is a topic that we haven't yet discussed on the show at all. We haven't spoken about anything cannabis related, which is crazy. I think we need to, and now we are. So I'm glad that you're joining us here, and you are a cannabis facility design and build expert. You've been in the construction trade for many, many years, commercial construction trade for many years. But over the past 5 years, created a independent niche within your business where you guys specialize in the design and build of cannabis facilities across the country. And so I'm excited to really dive into that topic and learn more about that side of your business and the unique nuances that are associated with it. But I guess before we do, Andy, I gave you a brief introduction in the beginning, but it really doesn't encompass the breadth of your background and expertise that you have, generally speaking, in the construction space. So maybe if you could take a few minutes and tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. I appreciate it, and listen to the podcast, and lots of great information out there. So everybody listening should continue to listen. So my background is I graduated from architecture school and went to work with somebody who became my partner in the architecture space. We started out primarily doing high-end custom residential design work and some commercial work. And we realized that there was a whole lot of opportunity to go into the construction side of things because a lot of people have issues with general contractors changing the job, not necessarily looking out for the client's best interests, and so on and so forth. And we said, you know what, we can do this ourselves. So the easiest entry point when we started this 29 years ago was in the high-end residential space. Mm-hmm. At that time, most people were in the residential space at all. They were building spec homes. So nobody wanted to touch remodeling. In fact, nobody wanted to touch remodeling in what the hardest work there is, I believe, high-end residential in old houses while people were living in them. But what that did for us is it really established a way for us to, really listen to our clients and understand their needs and be able to help them articulate that which they couldn't do themselves. And we were able to work in existing construction. So, while people were actually occupying the space. And that really helped us through not only the residential space, but in commercial space, which I'll, kind of take you through from that point forward. So we started out truly doing design build, which is really architect-led design build as opposed to what I consider build design, which is contractor-led. And we are a total relationship business, whereas the judgment of the success of a project for us is solely based on the unqualified recommendation from our clients. It's not about how much money we've made or lost, but if we can't create an advocate cheerleader from all of our clients, then the job's a failure for us. Luckily, we did whatever we had to do by whatever means necessary to develop those relationships. And as our clients went on from their residential work and asked us about commercial work, we went with them. And we did commercial projects for them, whether they be boutique, medical office, law office, banquet facilities, clubhouses, and so on. And then saw another opportunity where we took on 2 additional partners and created an entity where we provide exterior improvements, both individual single families, window siding and roofing, and then larger scale commercial projects that are value driven, affordable housing, senior housing, student housing, where the investor may want to go in and raise the rent rolls, or they may be able to fund a remodel with tax credits. And while we were working in that space for one of our commercial clients, who again were relationship guys, so we have developed this long-standing relationship with them, who was involved basically in B and C strip mall ownership and renovation and leasing. They came to me one day, called me on the phone and said, hey, I know you don't know what you're doing, and I know we don't know what we're doing when it comes to the space, but we just applied for and won 3 medicinal cannabis dispensary licenses in Illinois. And so because of the relationship and because of the trust factor, they said, look, we're going to figure this out together. So we went on a field trip, and sort of the rest has been history since that day over the last 5 years. And so not only did we parlay into that particular client, which we're still working for in multiple states, but we've got other national clients as well, which was unexpected actually from our business. We primarily did our work within a 3-hour radius of our office outside of Chicago. And we did hit some other states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, but we didn't at the time ever think we were going to become a national business. And lo and behold, new industry, new direction.
Well, let's talk about that topic real quick. Regarding, spreading yourself out or going outside of your initial geographical target location, which was 3-hour radius of where your home base is. Talk to me about some of the changes that had to occur within your company structure to maintain the same efficiencies that you were able to have there locally within that 3-hour radius. I mean, you start stretching out, state, this state, that state, 500, 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles, 3,000 miles away. There's lots of additional structural changes that need to occur. So I'd love to learn about that side of the business, and then we could dive into the more of the specific cannabis topic of discussion. But from a business perspective, how did you guys grow the company and not lose any of those major efficiencies that exist?
So that's an excellent question. Like I say, it really kind of happened by accident. The first time that we thought we were going to be able to even do anything like that was this one particular client acquired a license for a cultivation and a dispensary about 45 minutes south of Springfield, Illinois, which is about almost 4 hours from our office. And at that point, it's much different than what we had been used to, because we typically only took projects on where we could be on site, somebody from our office managing that project on a daily basis. And so what it forced us to do, and I'm glad that we were able to do the dispensary project first, which was much smaller, is that we hired a local superintendent that was part of the carpentry crew that we had hired to execute the work. And when we found that particular gem of a company and that gem of a superintendent, we realized that if we were able to find those kind of people and we were able to adequately educate them on what our process was, we still could go and visit a job site periodically. It just didn't have to be every day. Mm-hmm. So understand that we don't self-perform any work. We are true construction managers, but we function as general contractors. So, unlike the nuance between general contractors who hold contracts and construction managers that don't, we're GCs that provide management services to our clients. So we didn't have to worry about bringing down resources from a labor standpoint or a material standpoint down to that particular job or to any other particular job that's outside of our normal geographic area. But the key for us was really understanding, very much like all of the big companies do, that all of the big companies and even the medium-sized companies, construction companies for that matter, they don't have offices in every state that they operate in, but they do have management set up where they go out and find good labor, good daily project management, and you got to figure it out as you're going along. And, we haven't been that incredibly lucky on every single project, admittedly so. And sometimes it's really just a matter of being able to identify, who's good and who's not. And when it comes to teammates, which is what we call all of our extended family, whether it's a trade contractor, we don't like to use the word subcontractor. It connotes something that's substandard, subservient. It's not on our level. And so whether it's a trade partner, trade contractor teammate, or a supplier teammate, you don't really necessarily know until you kind of try it on. It's like clothes. A suit may look great in the window, but until you try it on, you don't really know if it's going to look great on you. And so what that means for us, because it's not a transaction and it's so much about the relationship, is that we over monitor the beginnings of that process so that we can make sure that we recognize any kind of challenge early enough on in order to be able to deal with it. Now, that being said, we've been very lucky with all of the cultivations that we have worked on separately than all the dispensaries, although some of them fall into this, is that we have been able to develop relationships with companies that are not just local to that jurisdiction, but are also national. So they have been able to provide the same labor force to us to be able to go from state to state. And that's really helped the learning curve out a lot. Got
it. No, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you giving us some additional insight there and painting some color to just to really how that growth process looked for your firm. I'd love to get into the cannabis specific conversation now, if you don't mind, Andy. And I guess maybe just some basics first and foremost. I surely don't know the answer to this. A lot of times I might know the answer to the question I'm asking, but I don't I'm very ignorant on this topic of cannabis, but more so from the point of how large this industry really is. And, more importantly, like how many states even to date, and I know that's an ever changing number, but how many states to date legally have either medicinal and or recreational cannabis? Do you know that answer by chance?
I do, actually.
Okay.
So right now, medicinal cannabis is legal in 33 states, and recreational cannabis is legal in 10. And I know that those numbers are changing very rapidly. There are all sorts of initiatives that are they're on ballots that are before state assemblies that are being considered, and that number is going to continue to change rapidly.
Being that it's still not federally legal, are there issues with the different clients that you're working with from like a financing perspective? Can they technically get bank loans, or is it more so private, probably private money or private investment? How does that work? Do you know that? I know you guys aren't really on the investment side, but obviously you're dealing with very specific clients and a little bit of the inner workings of their business. But I was actually just wondering if you knew the answer to that.
Sure. So I don't know the answer to that with respect to all of the clients I work with, but one of my clients, our biggest client, I do know that what they did was they're totally funded with investment money initially. And I do know that they have some loans after they started with investment money for some of the real estate.
Got it.
I also know that they initially set up different investments based on the state in which they had licenses. So if you invested in, say, Ohio, for instance, you'd be investing in their dispensaries and in their cultivation. And then you could invest also in one of the other states, but they wouldn't be sort of crossed over. And they had done it that way for, I think, about 3 years until they are now, I believe, in a fundraise where they're trying to roll everything together in anticipation of going public.
Got it. Okay. I appreciate that. Talk to me about the entering into a new niche like this. I mean, this is it's still a little bit of the wild, wild west. It really is. In fact, not even a little bit. It is the wild, wild west still, the cannabis industry. And every day is a new day. You guys were focused on the multifamily and residential design aspects and construction, but the needs and demands of a cannabis facility are drastically different than that of a multifamily apartment complex or that of a high-end residential custom home. So speak to me a little bit about how you guys quickly adapted to a completely new niche that really has not many similarities to what your prior experience was in.
Right. So Jack Welch had this great saying, and that is, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And you always learn more seeing how to do something incorrectly than how to do it correctly. And we've been very fortunate, although we got involved in this sort of in the infancy of the industry. There were plenty of facilities that had gone up and contractors and design builders that had been involved prior to us. So we did have the opportunity to be able to see where they had been challenged. But the reality of it is that our approach to this part of the business really has been no different than anything else that we had done, because good designers, and I think I alluded to it earlier in one of my comments, is that good designers really are facilitators. What we do is get inside of our clients' heads and help them articulate that which they cannot do themselves. And what that means for us, who really are educated as generalists, we know a little bit about a lot of different things, is that we have to find the experts and work with them to sort of fill in the blanks. So we are not engineers, although we understand engineering. So we have to be able to partner with a great engineering group that has experience in the cannabis world and has experience in knowing what has worked in the past, what hasn't worked in the past, and is also on the cutting edge of what is being produced currently and what they're looking out for the near future from the standpoint of techniques and the standpoint of equipment. It's the same thing with the grow side. Growers are very much like, and processors too for that matter, that are making these products are very much like restaurant chefs. They all have their own way of doing things. They all use their own specific equipment, and they have their own recipes. And they're really the ones that dictate to us what it is they're trying to accomplish. We just have to figure out technically how to actually get it done. So if they say to us, we want an environment that has this much humidity and this much temperature and this much control between lighting and air movement and what have you, we then can figure out how to actually execute that for them from the technical side.
Got it. No, I appreciate that. Being that you guys, 20 projects in 5 years, that's a significant amount of growth in this niche. And I know most of your growth has been, I'm assuming, probably been word of mouth. Very happy, satisfied clients that have essentially made introductions to friends or associates that are within similar niches. What do you foresee that growth looking like in this particular niche of your business over the coming years? Obviously the cannabis industry is not slowing down at all. I'm sure you guys are, getting calls left and right from other investors or operators that are looking for your services. And so how do you guys foresee that growth happening, but also more importantly, managing that growth? Because I think it's going to keep accelerating for many, many years to come. Maybe you disagree with that, but I surely don't see this freight train slowing down anytime soon. I'd love to learn from your side how you guys intend on managing that growth.
Sure. So it's a great question. We basically doubled the size of our staff in the last 5 years. And so what we realize, I think just as important as the growth is in cannabis, is that being able to be a national company has affected the other two verticals in our business. We now are able to service our clients that have outside interests in the multifamily space, whether it be student housing, affordable housing, senior housing, or any sort of general market rate apartments. We're able to do that on a national level as well. And I think that's really where sort of the controlled growth comes in for our particular business. Is we don't want to be completely dependent on any one of our verticals, which is exactly how we've been able to survive through all the economic downturns. And we've been very conservative. So if you were to take and chart out our growth over the last 29 years, it's a very steady climb, although there are some plateaus and maybe a little dip or two. There aren't very many radical peaks and valleys in our business. And so taking that and interpolating that with the cannabis part of our business, I would suggest that I think that we probably have, and this is just, I've got no empirical data. This is my own personal opinion on this, that I think we probably have 7 to 10 more years of this before it becomes federally legal. And when it becomes federally legal, I think you're going to find different players that are in the market. You're going to have, and that's quite honestly, I think that's what most of these companies are banking on, that you're going to get big pharma and big alcohol and big tobacco that have, that understand major distribution, and depending on how it works across state lines, if they're able to ship across state lines, or even if it's just within that particular state, I think that the facilities and production and processing and the operational part of it is going to be a little bit different. So at this point in our careers, we're building, 30 to 80,000 square feet. Those groups are going to be building millions of square feet at a given time. And I didn't think I'd be doing this 5 years ago. So I don't know in 5 or 7 or 10 years from now if I can do millions of square feet. But I can tell you that what's important for us is to be able to control it from the standpoint of making sure that we're working with clients that are looking for partners. So we really function as design build partners with our clients based on a relationship. If you're looking for a transaction, we're probably not the guys, although we're not hardly the most expensive by a long shot, but we're just not a transactional business. We function so that our clients can go off and do what they do best, which is continue to grow their business and acquire more licenses and so on. And we, with their input, can handle all of navigating the minefields of the design and construction part of it.
Yeah, I love that. It really is. It's about enjoying the ride. Obviously you guys are in business to make money, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be in business. You'd have gone out of business many, many years ago. But, your ultimate number one goal, it sounds like, is satisfaction of your clients or your partners. And ultimately you want it to be a long-term relationship. And I think that makes the ride more enjoyable. And if you're enjoying the ride and you're really just worried about the satisfaction of those clients, and the money's going to come, right? The growth will come, and everything else that you wish and hope for in your business will ultimately play out if you focus on those couple of things. So, I would love to, from your side of things, and this is not to get into a political discussion or a religious discussion, because that's not this type of show. But I'm wondering, obviously, being that there are folks out there that opposition to legalization, whether it be for medicinal purposes or recreational use. Did you have any challenges, I guess, not necessarily getting your internal team on board, but maybe, I guess, your internal team on board, or as you guys were growing, looking for these different strategic partners in these different markets, did you have any challenges that came about due to folks that maybe had different beliefs on cannabis?
So I can't tell you what an excellent question that is, because if I were to tell you, or if you were to talk to anybody who knows me, to know that I'm involved on any level in the cannabis business, they would tell you that you've got to be kidding. They would never believe you, because that I still, and I am 53 years, I'll be 53 years old this year. I've never tried the product. And I've never tried the product because back in the day when we were going to school, the access to it was you would smoke it. And of course it was illegal. And, that's just, I wouldn't smoke anything. So that wasn't about me. But what I realized is it wasn't so much about the business opportunity, which, getting back to your last comments, which was as an excellent point. We've been doing construction, design, build for so long that to have a vertical like this that's so different and so expansive and so rapidly changing, it's become infusive in our business and very exciting. And so combining that with with what we've learned about specifically the medicinal benefits of cannabis and the unfounded reputation that it had for so many years about, what it would do to you if it was a gateway drug and all the other debates that are out there, I would tell you that nearly everybody that we talk to, whether they believe in the product or they don't, internally and externally, is very excited because we're learning new things. We've, in our particular, like I say, internally, we've expanded beyond states that we'd ever worked in before. And although it's challenging, it's been thrilling and we really enjoy it. And I can tell you that I don't believe that we have ever interviewed a possible teammate internally or a trade partner that refused to look at the particular project based on moral or ethical principles. I will tell you that our bank, for instance, wanted to make certain that we were getting paid with funds that were out of investment, not funds that were out of operations. And I can understand that. It's not federally legal. And they wanted to make sure that all of a sudden that they weren't going to be put in a position where they would have to justify to their board of directors how we were going through this massive growth.
Interesting.
So I think that's sort of about as close to anything like that. But I will tell you that I'm a firm believer in the product, on the medicinal benefits of it. In Illinois, it's currently right now a patient program. It's not even yet a law. So the governor here is working with the state assembly to be able to get the program expanded from the limited amount of patients it reaches and to be able to expand it into a law, which, from at a personal level, I'm excited to see because there are medical benefits that I've got family members that are taking synthetics for that cannabis, even the non-THC part of it, is just going to be a radical improvement for them in lifestyle. And it's a natural product. So, I'm all in.
Good. Well, I appreciate you answering that question and going in depth with that. I mean, I know it could be that was kind of a sensitive question and it could have been managed many different ways, but I appreciate the honest feedback. And I'm glad to hear that there ultimately hasn't been any, abrasive folks that you've run into along the way, or folks that have, opposed what you're doing. So at the end of the day, I feel the same way you do. I've got, family members that use it for the medicinal benefits, and it's been a life changer for them. So with that being said, I wanted to ask you whether or not, if there's anything, we covered a lot of different things. We kind of jumped around a little bit. Is there anything that we might have missed that you feel is absolutely relevant for our folks to know about the cannabis industry as it relates to kind of your niche, your company's niche within the space?
So, I think that because it's so new and because the industry is changing so rapidly, I think the more informed they are with regards to getting the right people with experience, getting the right equipment that has been proven, I think that's really important if they want to get into this space at all. And I think that if you surround yourself with good people, you usually get a good result. And I think there is great opportunity, but like anything else, really, you just have to plan accordingly and you have to prepare accordingly. And I think that if you've got good partners that work with you and that see things differently. I mean, truly become your partners in this. In that, one of the things that I think has been an endemic issue in the construction industry over years is how design builders and specifically GCs and architects go about charging their clients. And I think what happens is that it's been an industry standard to charge a percentage of construction. And what that does really, as a benefit to your architect and your contractor, is it only incentivizes them to be able to make a project cost more money. Mm-hmm. And there's no protection really from the client perspective of this. And if you can, we work totally differently. We, a long time ago, figured out that all we really have to offer is our intellectual property and our process. And the only way you can really measure that is based on time and a stipulated sum. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you can find partners that really work alongside of you, and they will, if they have a vested interest in how long a job takes and no vested interest in how much it costs, then they're truly working alongside of you and advising you accordingly. And I think if you can do that in the construction part of the business and in the supplier part of the business and in the consultant part of the business, I think you'll end up being very successful.
No, that's great. Now that it's so true. I mean, we just got done building a custom home, and it was an absolute nightmare. Very much for the same reason that you just outlined there, is that our builders, because we went through a few, were not directly aligned with our best interest in mind, and so that the project got out of hand fairly quickly. And the rest of that story. So I love how you guys approach things. I think that's the best way. You really put yourself in the same shoes as your client and working towards the same end goal. And if they're ultimately not successful, you guys aren't successful. So your interests are directly aligned with one another's. Andy, you've shared a lot of wonderful golden nuggets here today on the show. Lots of great information, lots of insights that I was not aware of, to the cannabis industry, to the construction side of things. If you had one final golden nugget, hopefully you've got one left in your pocket that you can share with us, but one final golden nugget of advice or wisdom that you can leave with our listeners that may inspire and motivate them as they progress in their real estate investing career, what would that one last golden nugget be?
So I think you have to find people and align yourself with people that aren't looking at a particular project, even if that's all you have is one particular project. Mm-hmm. I think you have to look at it from the standpoint of a relationship and people who understand a relationship and people who can look at you as the client through your particular lens. What are you really trying to accomplish? And sometimes, over the years, we've given advice to people of projects we never even got because it was just the right thing to do because we understood that either that particular project or that particular client wasn't appropriate for us. And I think that's really how very successful projects, again, if they're individual or they're ongoing, end up culminating is by aligning yourself with people that can put themselves in your shoes and how would they want to be treated and how would they want it to be done. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love every bit of it. Well, Andy, this has been an absolute pleasure. Again, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here and sharing all this great information with our listeners. And folks, if you want to learn more about Andy and his company, the website I'm going to give you here on the show is regarding the direct vertical that they focus in the cannabis industry. But he's got a larger company, construction company, or I guess design and construction company that focuses on other types as well, multifamily, high-end residential. We'll have that in the show notes. But if you want to learn more about this cannabis-specific niche that he's focused in, you can go visit his website, cannabisfacility.net. Again, cannabisfacility, and that's singular.net. Andy, that's all we have, my friend. Again, really appreciate you coming on here. It's been a lot of fun, and look forward to staying in touch and just wishing you and your team the most success as you guys move into this. I guess it's still kind of new, right? 5 years, this new vertical, and we know that this industry has this leaps and bounds. It's already grown leaps and bounds, and it's got much more room to grow here in the coming years. And so it would be great to kind of watch your guys' evolution and again, wishing you the most success here over the coming years.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate you inviting me on the show, and love to be back anytime. So thank you.
Congratulations! Now you've got more of the best tricks of the trade in building massive amounts of passive income from real estate. For more amazing resources, visit realestateinvestingforcashflow.com, and we'll see you next Monday morning.